how did you as a family initially hear about Salesforce? Like, how did this come to be that you were even interested in a Salesforce career for either one of you? And sort of who came first? Like, who was the first one to be like, all right, Salesforce careers are what we should be doing? Because I've heard a few different, stories from different people. And sometimes it's like one person will bring it up. They're like, I heard about Salesforce. You should try this. And then they get the other person to try it and then they come later. But yeah, I would love to hear, how did you guys even find out about Salesforce and decide that was something that you might reasonably want to look into?
Well, it's really her fault because we were both picking our own careers to shift to because of the pandemic. But you kind of found it through your old job.
Yeah, so I was actually an end user at my old job. And so that's how I started using it. My little section of my company, we kind of managed Salesforce ourselves. The Salesforce admin didn't really handle any of our sections. So it actually came on, they were trying to free up somebody else that was kind of taking on that accidental admin role. And they asked me if I would be interested in kind of helping out so she could kind of concentrate on other things. And, at first I was kind of uncertain. It just seemed like, I don't know, can I do this? And I kind of started jumping into it. And I think it was just the wrong time. I was pregnant at the time, so I'm not sure a lot was like really going into my brain. But after that, a lot of the stuff just kind of started clicking in my head. And I was like, oh, okay, I can do this. And so, yeah, I think in January of 21 is when I really started jumping in and realizing how big this ecosystem is and how lucrative of a career it could really be. And then I just continued, I started Trailhead and just continued along. And then I found Talent Stacker in May of that year and joined.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you go through, so this is sort of the origin story of you find out about Salesforce from work, you're working in it to some extent. Then you realize you want to take this a little bit more seriously and be proactive. And so you're doing training on your own outside of work. You find us in May and jump in. So Justin, what's going through your head at the time? Like what is your perspective of all of this that's sort of unfolding?
So we were kind of just going down our own paths. So I don't know that I really had a super perspective until she started doing Talent Stacker. Cause then I started hearing, some of the videos she was watching, and then she started talking about just options and, what the path could be. But for me, I was, just kind of listening to that, but I was down the cybersecurity, path. And I actually got certified from CompTIA 3 times and had a job offer on the table. And we decided, like, we kind of started joking about, like, maybe I should refocus while I was still looking for a job. And then that came through and it was like, well, maybe are we can I consider doing this? Like, should I take this job and try to focus on that and Salesforce? Should I just kind of doing a little bit of part-time stuff I was doing and then focus on Salesforce? And we just kind of decided that, really the option of working remote was more of an option in Salesforce than it really was going to be in cybersecurity. And that was really something we wanted to do as a family, maybe even possibly travel down the road, just different things like that. And it just really ended up being what's going to be best for what we want to do in our life outside of work.
Yeah, like long-term, not short-term.
Yeah, to me, that's the conversation. And I think if you'd asked me a year ago, what type of company is Talent Stacker, I would say it's a company where, we help people understand Salesforce careers and we help them get a job. If you ask me today, what is Talent Stacker? I would say it's a lifestyle company that is solving the income and career part of the formula by helping people get Salesforce jobs. Because it's so much more than that, right? It's about, Salesforce is intriguing to me as a person, and it sounds like to you guys too, because of all of the ancillary benefits. It's a low barrier to entry. It's, to me, it's excessively high pay for what goes into learning these skills. Sure. People don't realize. Is it easy? Absolutely not. But is it a pretty straightforward path? Yeah, but you got to put in the work to conquer that path. But getting to work from home, getting to work remotely, traveling, respected by your coworkers a lot more than you are in other industries. There's just so many benefits, both like mentally and physically for these types of jobs. So yeah, I'm definitely right there with you. So I want to backtrack a little bit, because you mentioned that you guys were looking to career pivot and that was pandemic related. Is that true? So what background were you guys coming from that was impacted in a way that made you think, all right, we gotta pivot and try something new?
So we both we come from the entertainment industry. And at the time she had already gotten out and was doing another position as far as outside the entertainment industry. Yeah. And it wasn't the greatest paying job. I mean, especially compared to Salesforce salaries. So she was always like, this is not my long-term goal. And just kind of was open to things. Yeah. For me, with being in the entertainment industry still, specifically concert production, it was like, okay, the pandemic's hit, March 27th, everyone's furloughed.
Shut down.
Who knows how long? And then on top of that, she was pregnant, having a baby. So we went from, I was the top income earner, to she wasn't really necessarily wanting to have her job or wanting her job and what she was doing, and just looking for the avenue. And for me, it was like, okay, if I'm going to spend all this time at home, maybe I just need to focus on something. And that's where, it's kind of just focusing on what is a better paying career, and more specifically, what can I get into that's not paying for 3 years in night school. Yeah. Because I think that's one of people's biggest barriers, is just paying for that extra schooling to not really know what the outcome's going to be. And then on top of that, not only are you doing that, how many years after that do you have to pay your dues to get to back to where you want to be?
Yeah, I've got a friend right now who she went into, I'll say, nursing, not quite like phlebotomy. So she went into nursing, and then she was looking for a promotion and like looking for a way forward. So she got a master's degree while she was working her first 4 years, and then finished that. And it turns out it's really not giving her much leverage to actually getting the promotions she was hoping to get. So now she's in the Talent Stacker program. We'll see. We'll see what we can do. But it's very different. And I think sort of, especially in the Salesforce world, it changes a lot of those standard expectations of like, well, you need a bachelor's degree for this or a master's degree for that, or it changes a lot of those core concepts that I think a lot of people follow. Because we just don't operate like that. There's such a shortage, and there's very specific ways to learn these skills, and it's not necessarily through, the college, I'll say, structure. What do you think has changed the most for you both? Because you've both landed Salesforce jobs now. What has changed the most, and what do you see changing in your lives over the next couple of years that, really wouldn't have been possible in a past life because of really joint careers in Salesforce?
It's all you.
I think for me, I feel less stressed in like my personal life. Not having to commute is huge. Not having to be like super rushed in the morning and like pack lunches. So that flexibility is really great. Beyond that, I really think, when we were looking and considering other careers, we had this big checklist, and honestly, like, we didn't think that, every box was going to be checked. And I really think that this is really kind of that sweet spot. So like in the future, I really hope that we have, some more flexibility to travel. I think we just want more control over our lives. If we have like doctor's appointments or something to go to, not feeling like we have to make up those work hours or,
like put in time off requests and all this kind of stuff. It's, in this world, it's really as simple as an email to your team and just letting them know, hey, I'll be gone for a couple hours today. Yeah, exactly.
Well, I think that one of the nice things that the ecosystem provides is it's that whole quantity, over quality over quantity work. It's not a matter of, you have to be there for 8 hours to get your job done, even though you have 4 hours worth of work. So, I mean, that's really just a great thing to feel comfort in knowing that that's what it is for you, and not, I just got to be here till 5 o'clock.
Yeah, I remember one of the first big realizations for me was it was that I don't even know what to call it. I think it's like life efficiency, where you can work and do sort of the chores of everyday life during that 8-hour window, typically, unless you're on a crazy project where fires are burning and you got to get it done because the deadline's coming. For the most part, that's not a typical day in the life. And you're going to have weeks that are crazy and you're going to have weeks that are kind of like chill. And for me, it was realizing I can do things like the laundry and the dishes, and I can even sneak out for an hour and cut the grass. Maybe it's on a lunch break and I can, eat real quick while I'm finishing up a meeting and then go cut the grass on my lunch break and come back in. And what I loved is that at Friday at 5 o'clock, or really every day at 5 o'clock, it wasn't get off work, go do all the things that need to be done just to maintain a household. It was get off work and have the rest of the day. And on the weekends, have your weekends. It's not, all right, well, now we got to cut the grass and catch up on 5 loads of laundry and get everything done before Monday. It was very much all those ancillary things are complete. Now we can continue forward with progression in our personal lives. And I really enjoyed that aspect, even early on in my career as a Salesforce professional.
I think also one of the really big aspects for us is we've always worked for small companies, but being able to pivot into a new company, and if you work in a toxic work environment, or you work in an environment you just don't like, or you want to change, it's so easy, and there's so many things out there to find something new, that not feeling stuck is huge.
That is huge. And you don't have to relearn to pivot, right? You can go work for a new company. Yeah, you need to relearn their business processes and how they work and who your teammates are and this kind of stuff. But yeah, you don't have to relearn all those certifications and skills. I've really enjoyed that too. I remember I had some information around like the 7 reasons I think Salesforce careers are just different than other things. And that was one of them. It was, I can work in manufacturing this year, and then if I get bored in manufacturing and I just hate the processes of it, I can go work in software next year, or I can work in cloud platforms, or I can go work for healthcare or finance. Like, I can pivot into any industry. And that was a lot of my career, especially in consulting. It was, working for banking systems, working for healthcare startups, insurance companies, filter manufacturing, like everything in between. And you can do all of that with the same skill set, which is really a beautiful thing. What do you feel like? What advice would you give, based on your experience, to spouses who are looking at doing this together or having sort of the Salesforce household? I'm sure there's some really great things about that and some of the synergies that you have inside your home, but also trying to find a balance between Salesforce as a career and having your actual lifestyle. So I would love to hear, what advice you would have for, maybe if you're trying to rope another couple into doing this together, like what is it they need to look out for and maybe look forward to?
Well, I think for us, it's a little different just because we've worked together probably for like almost cumulatively like 7 years. So we've kind of done some of that, felt out what works, what doesn't work, and what to leave at work. And it's obviously a little different when you work from home. You can't just leave it at work. But I think the biggest thing is just finding what works for your lifestyle. That's the biggest pitch. You can, great, you love your job, or you are okay with your job, but does it give you what you want to live your life? And I think that's what the biggest thing is, or as far as pitching it to someone else or another couple, is it will really get you to where you want to be, to do the things you want to do.
What difference do you think Talent Stacker as a program made, as opposed to trying to do this on your own and going through this process on your own?
I think for me, it's just the instant network. You can know no one, even if you haven't talked to anyone. You just put one thing on the Facebook page, and it's like, you have 40 friends and 40 connections. And I know I've heard some people, talk about it. Is it a scheme or whatever because you pay for it? My thing is, well, you pay for college. Is that a scheme? Because it's a lot more. But if you really want to look at it that way, you can look at it as you're buying a network, or whatever. But that's really probably the most important part of the whole thing, even though like there's all the training videos and just different advice you can hear. But it's learning that, especially for people who aren't necessarily networkers. Like I'm not a huge networker. I don't really like social media. I don't like getting on there. I just kind of, I don't want to say it drains me, but in a way it drains me. So, but in a way, like right out of the gate, that's your network. That's where you're going to get advice. I mean, you hear other people's experiences, failures, you know, the way they succeed. And I think that's just huge right out of the gate for anybody, because you can see that so-and-so got a job. How long have you been doing it? And that all that information is just right there. And it's just an extra motivator from the beginning.
Yeah, I think it's awesome to be in a group of people that are kind of all going through the same struggles and triumphs. There's a lot of things like in the group that are pretty normalized, you know, like, oh, I just, you know, took my admin exam and I failed. And then I failed again, you know, so just understanding that you're not the only person to ever do that. And, you know, a lot of people are having like the same struggles, like, okay, maybe I do have my first job now and I can't figure out this maybe super basic thing, you know, just having that support network right there. And then I think, you know, before even getting the job, it was just really awesome having access to all of the content and all the direction as far as, you know, the LinkedIn. And then, you know, all the events too, the special events that are hosted. It's just really cool, like hearing about all those different stories and hearing from all the different experts and all of that as well.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. And I'm glad you guys are part of this. I mean, I really consider it a family. My wife's like, did you really just tell somebody welcome to the family when they join the program? And I'm like,
you have a really big family.
Like, yeah, I did. Because I do look at it that way. It's like, we're all just sort of this group of people who I think even going into our careers for years to come can support each other. And, you know, you guys talk about, well, I tried, you know, you guys are both working in two different companies and you can sort of see it and see the differences and see the benefits. But to me, it's, especially in our alumni group, you can have those private conversations and you can talk to hundreds of other people who work at different companies and say, how do you like it over there? You know, maybe I could apply. I've got some experience now. And to me, it's being able to have that massive transparency in that conversation, not on LinkedIn in a public way where everybody's looking at you and your employer's like, why are you asking your friend about how they like it at their job? Like, hold on a second. So I just love that dynamic that we can all come together. We can compete with each other in some ways. But really, if we just all support each other, even if you lose out on an opportunity because you helped uplift someone else into it, you're going to get your shot.